Hello and welcome in to the Easy Neon Lettering for Beginners. If you don't know me, I'm Saki. I'm a lettering artist and surface pattern designer from Montreal, Canada. And today is all about creating a glowy neon sign. If you want to go from this to this, please stay tuned because we're going to show you how easy it is to get to this result. You should be done in about 30 minutes with a finished neon sign. First, we're going to figure out the background to our piece. I like to use unsplash.com as it is a site that provides you with images that are free of rights. There is a subscription that I don't have. If the pictures have a plus in the corner, it means they are not free to use, so do not use these. Other sites like FreePic also have the same service, but I really have been going to Unsplash. So in the search bar, I'm going to search for a brick wall. Just scroll down a bit and you will see multiple choices. Obviously, do not take a picture that has text on it or anything, but choose a brick wall texture that you like. No worries if it is not black and white. We will fix that. I'm just going to look until I get a brick wall that I'm satisfied with. I think I like this. So when you find a picture that you enjoy, you click on it and press download free and it will load into your iPad. Then you can go to Procreate and import your picture by going to insert file. It should be in your downloads. So we're going to make it the size of our canvas. If you want it to be bigger or smaller, now is the time to adjust it. Then you're going to title it background and go to your magic wand, use saturation and brightness. Then you're going to bring the saturation down. If it is not dark enough to your taste, I generally like almost black charcoal gray. You can go ahead and lower the brightness. In this case, I do like this here. So I'm going to go with that. If your bricks are generally more on the lighter side, dropping the saturation will probably make them a lighter gray. In this case, you can just tap on your background layer and select invert, and it will bring it to a background that is more suited for our project today. So that's it. You have a background. For the base composition, I do always like to start with some text. So you're going to go into your wrench icon and select add text. In this case, I'm going to use the words shine bright. So I do like to start by just duplicating my layer and having my two words ready. I do love to use two different typefaces for my base. I generally use one script that will be the first word, and then I use a bolder one for the second word, and I will trace the outline. I will not use the full letter in any case. So this is really just a guide to get started on your composition. In this case, I do really like the typeface that came on for Shine and Bright. I'm going to go and change my font to my Groovy script font I really love using for these kind of projects. So next, you're just going to go ahead and resize and place your wording. Then I'm going to rasterize both of them. Next, I do like to have a base shape to work with. In this case, I'm going to go for a oval shape. So you can go to your calligraphy brush and use the monoline. Adjust the thickness to be to your liking, and then in a new layer, just draw an oval. Then you can edit it for it to be in the shape you want, rotate it, place it however you like it most. I'm going to make this second word bigger. I'm going to select everything and center it. Next part is completely optional, but I do think it adds quite a bit of personality to the piece you're going to do. So in this case, my rasterized text, I'm going to go ahead and erase the dots to the eyes, and I'm going to change them to stars. So I am using my star stamp I've created, but if you are interested in learning how to create a stamp brush, please head to the bonus where I will show you how to make a simple star stamp. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp one star, And then I'm just going to place it to my liking here. I'm going to do the same thing with my second star. In this case, I want it to be a bit smaller. And here we go. So you have your base composition ready to go. Please do not spend too much time on this step, as this is really a base. We won't be using much of what's on screen right now in our final piece. You just want some guides to get your project started. Now it is time to select our color palette. I usually go really simple with this. I go with 2 to 3 different colors. Since we have 3 main elements, we have 2 words and 1 shape. You could go for 3 colors, but in this case, I'm going to use 1 color for both words and then another color for the oval shape. So you're going to go to your classic color selection tool. And in this case, I'm going to go for a bright yellow. And then you're going to choose a desaturated version of that same color. To the end of each line, I'm going to add some white and black. These are each color you will need for this layer. My second color I've decided would be a nice bright blue. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So regular, quite saturated blue, and then a desaturated version, some black, and some white. It's as simple as that. Play around with colors, but as long as you always affect this rule here of 1 bright saturated, 1 desaturated, black and white, basically any color would do. I do suggest staying with saturated colors. The darker you get, the lower your neon effect will have this impact. All right, time for the line art. I did play around with my elements a tiny bit just to make it more to my liking. And now I grouped everything. You can then flatten everything on one layer, and we're going to lower the opacity. Lower it enough so you can easily see lines over it, but not enough that you're losing your lines. We are going to use our whitest white, create a new layer, and go to your monoline brush once again. Calligraphy collection and then monoline. This seems a little thick, so you can adjust thickness. I like this. So now we're just going to trace our features on separate layers. So you're going to do each word on a separate layer and your oval shape on another. I'm going to start with my oval, which is quite easy since you have the original line. Make sure to hold your pencil to get the cleanest lines possible. And I'm renaming my shape. I'm going to have one layer that's going to be called shine and another that's going to be called bright. For the shine layer, it is quite easy. If you want to, you can hide your oval layers so it's easier to follow the lines. To help you trace the letters and your word to be as clean as possible, I suggest you go and click the monoline brush and go into the stabilization section. Check that the streamline is about 12% and the stabilization amount will vary depending on your writing. In my case, I do have a slight tremble and I want everything to be as smooth as possible, so my stabilization is at 50%. You will have to adjust to your liking, but trying to trace a zigzag motion will really help you define and determine what stabilization amount is right for you. If you go too high, you're going to lose your curve, and if you go too low, it's going to look a little bit less clean. You do want your lines to be extremely clean at this stage, so play around until you find the amount of stabilization that works for you. For this step, keep it slow and steady. The lines you are creating in this line art process are your final lines, so take your time to make sure everything looks great. I'm just going to get started and go slow. On certain lines, you will easily be able to hold your pen and clean them up. Like this one is a perfect moment to use it. When you can, it's always a good idea to use this hold a pencil technique, as it will clean up your lines and maybe avoid you restarting as much. Now you can toggle off your sketch to see if you are happy with the shape. And if you have some corrections to do, you can either restart or you can use your magic wand, go to liquify, push, and just go and adjust those lines that may not be exactly what you wanted. Like here, my S curve is a tiny bit crooked. All right. And here, the end of my S is not quite like I want it to be. I want it to look smoother than that. Like this. So the shine layer is done. We only have the star left to trace. Since we're going to have to use two stars, I'm going to put it on a separate layer. And I'm just going to trace our star. I think I will use a thinner brush here. So as I said, the lines does not need to be like extremely perfect, but they have to be really clean for this effect to have the prettiest result. So for the star here, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it to place it. For our bright layer, I'm not going to trace only the skeleton of my letters. I'm actually going to go back to my thickness here and I'm going to trace the outline. So this is a tiny bit more tedious, but the end result is really fun. So we're just going to go ahead and slowly trace our letters. You can always stop in the middle of a line if you want to use your curve tool. It is a great way to make sure your letters are as clean as possible. So you want to make it look as seamless as possible. And you're going to see if the stabilization has been adjusted to your needs. It's going to be way smoother than you think. It's easier. So we're going to do that all the way throughout your letters. I personally feel that this technique is kind of more simple than doing the skeletons. As the skeletons, you need to really understand your letters and make sure your lines connect and everything. But here, since you're essentially tracing the outline of the letter, I feel like it is quite easier to do. But take your time and you're going to get there. The first time might be a bit tougher, but you're definitely going to get there. And by repeating the techniques and trying it over again, you're going to see you're going to gain confidence as well. You will know that you are able to do it and you will start being more comfortable with your workflow. That's also why setting your brush settings is so important. It may look a bit daunting at first to set up the brushes, but once the brushes are adjusted to your liking, to your hand pressure, to all of your characteristics, you're going to make the brushes work for you, not against you. There is really no right or wrong. You just have to experiment and try different options. You can always play around with the nodes. If you think that your curve is a bit too inclinated towards a sense, you're going to choose the middle node and you can really go ahead and adjust your curve for it to be perfectly aligned with what you want it to be. Here you see that the connection is not quite perfect. So you can also pull the nose up or down to make the ends of your tracing aligned. When you arrive to these steeper curves, I do like to start around where I stopped this previous line. I just do a U shape until the next one. I felt like this is the easier way to get my curve to look the way I want it to. Whoa. Yes, sometimes you will want to use nodes to adjust, and it may do this. If it does this, just undo it, restart. Even if you undo and try the nodes again, it will not work. It does happen once in a while. It is a bit of a wild bug, but don't lose your time with this if it happens. All right, so we have our last two letters. I'm going to go ahead and start with a line here. If you see that your curve is a bit too inclinated, here you can always erase the end and keep going. Why? Okay. This happens when you do those steeper curves. I don't know why, but it does. And here, I'm going to give you another tip. Here, this is a curve, but it is really close to your straight line. So if you just try to follow the curve, sometimes it will not do your arc. Sometimes it will want to do a straight line. My technique to go around this is I do a sharper arc to make sure that my pen registers it as an arc, and I use the middle node to come and lower it back into place. So now we can toggle our oval back on, merge our bright with the star, and remove our sketch. Now all we have left to do is to go to our oval and cut it where it goes through our wording. You can realize if you look at neon signs on Pinterest or in real life that they are never colliding with one another. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a certain width of eraser. In this case, I'm going to go with this here. And I'm just going to go over my lettering to make sure that my spaces are cohesive. And if there's too little of a section in the middle of two letters, I just remove it completely. So here, I'm following my curve, doing the same here, and here, removing it. Here is good. Then we have this section left. Now you see they are quite sharp edges. So I go in with a smaller eraser and I'm going to give them a curve. You're going to create an arc and round up your edges. It's going to look more natural and cleaner as well. You're going to do this all around your design. And we have, I think, this last one. So now we have our line art Ready? Now it is time to add our neon effect. To do so, you're going to open your layers, and each of your sections you're going to want to duplicate 3 times. So you need 4 copies of each. The first one of each will stay white. You're going to have to change your blending mode to add. So click on the little N and go to add. Do this for each of your sections. It's going to make your whites appear brighter. All of the other layers will need to be alpha locked. You can do so by clicking and choosing alpha lock, or by swiping right on the layer with your 2 fingers. The bottom copy of each of them, you're going to fill with black. You're going to be able to put these layers together, all of the black ones, and merge them down. This is going to be your general shadow. You can then remove alpha lock. Now you should have 1 white and 2 alpha locked layers of each of the other sections. So you're going to start with your brightest color, in this case, my bright yellow. I'm going to apply it to the first alpha lock of my 2 words. You can then turn off alpha lock. Then you're going to select your desaturated yellow and fill the bottom layers. Now we're going to do the same thing with the blue with our oval. So the first one is going to be our saturated color, and the second one is going to be our desaturated color. Now we're going to go to our saturated color layer, go to the magic wand and use a Gaussian blur. If your layers are still alpha locked at this stage, it will not work. So make sure everything is not on alpha lock anymore. So for the first layers, we're going to put the Gaussian blur to 8%. We're going to do the same thing for the first layer of each section. So magic wand, Gaussian blur, 8%. And the same for our saturated layer of our oval. Then we're going to do the same thing with our desaturated layers, but with more Gaussian blur. So select your desaturated layer, Gaussian blur, and we're going to go up to 12% here. You can adjust it and play around as you see fit. So again, magic wand, Gaussian blur, 12%. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to merge together the saturated and the desaturated layer of each. And we're going to duplicate our glow here 2 times and merge them together. So 1, 2, and merge. 1, 2, and merge. For our shadow, we're going to go to our black merged layer and just move it a tiny bit below our neon. And we're going to Gaussian blur it by about 5%. I like to go with 4, but you can play around with this as well. And if you want it to be stronger, you can always duplicate it and merge it down. So this is our neon sign, but we are still missing the last step, which is the glow. It's a super easy step to do, and it's really going to give a lot of dimension to your project. So you're going to go and add a layer just above your shadow. This one we're going to call a glow, and we're going to need 2 as we have 2 colors. So you're going to go ahead and choose your saturated color, and then we're going to go to our airbrushing and soft blend brush. You can then adjust the size. I do like to have it like quite big, like so. And you're going to just go over your oval. And we're going to do the same exact thing on the other layer. It's going to look way too intense, and we're going to fix that. Now I'm going to start by using a Gaussian blur, just a tiny bit, like 5% on each layer. So Magic Wand Gaussian blur 5%. And then we're going to go and click the N and lower our opacity down to about 25% on each of our glow layers. You can play around. In this case, I think I'm going to add a tiny bit, like I'm going to bring it to 30. And that's it. If you want to, you can still add some Gaussian blur again, which I'm going to do. And that's it. You have a finished glowy neon sign project. All right, so that is it for this course. I hope you had a good time learning how to create this neon sign. Please make sure to play around with colors, with shapes, with words, and get creative with it. This technique can be applied to so many different things. It is definitely an interesting one when you start playing around with it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you guys in my other courses.